to be a soldier. Naked force sent the projectile hurtling through the air. The missile hit the target with a thwack. Splintering wood was sent in all directions. Men jumped, shouting with excitement. The pitch, charged with their yells, subsided to clapping. Having knelt to repair the damaged wicket, the umpire found the direct hit had reduced the stumps to splinter. Play was paused as the fielding side embarked on a hunt for a substitute stump. A respectful applause from the players accompanied the return of their third defeated batsman. He dutifully left the field to be met by the delegated captain of the 11, Alex Chittum. At the scoring table, Daniel observed the captain, throwing himself wholeheartedly into the role. Not since his school days had Daniel met anyone that could have done better in leading a team. With his enthusiasm, Chittum was motivating both officers and men. Daniel glanced at the gathered spectators. He looked on Major Halesworth. In his retirement, the Major's girth had grown so that his uniform was now tight at the seams. He talked to a visiting general. Prior to the start of the match, the Major had expressed disappointment in Lieutenant Daniel Selden not reserving the captainship for himself. Daniel had told him of Chittum's experiences on the pitch at Lord's. Halesworth nodded, agreeing that it was a natural choice. Daniel did not share any great yearning for leadership. Indeed, he had successfully managed to avoid commission until that year, having finally accepted the status of lieutenant. He had only taken the commission in the knowledge that he might be able to protect the men in whatever way he could. "Not doing as well as you could, then," said Chittum, slumping into a canvas seat beside Daniel. "Still, the game is not over by any means. Who's that chap now, there on the pitch?" "Lieutenant Lewis. He has a build for a good batsman. I imagine he'll knock a few for six." A call from the wood's edge indicated a substitute stump had been found. The game was resumed. Daniel finished putting hand-drawn scores to the makeshift scoreboard. "Surprising how many chaps can produce a cricket ball out here in France. I knew that carrying around that old bat of mine would be worth it one day." Chittum admired the stance of Lewis, tapping the cricket bat against the ground. "I've had that thing since Harrow. Brought me no end of luck in matches. Let's hope it does the same again." Relaxing in the chair, Chittum observed the scene. A wave of homesickness for England lodged in his chest. When this war was all over, would old England exist as it had 10 years ago? Alex Chittum was certain that nothing, not even an invasion, could eradicate Englishness, and especially not cricket. Nothing could change or diminish the sport, or the values of the game. This game was deeply rooted in English culture. At the thought of cricket banned under a foreign rule, a wave of anguish swept through him. With a hard swallow, Chittum shifted in his seat, resting tense elbows on equally tense knees. "Almost like being back home," said Chittum, turning his thoughts to an improvised pitch. He added his thought that the lack of white flannels was unfortunate. Khaki uniforms lacked a comfortable cut and were not a pleasant cloth to play in. Still, the sight of the players gave him comfort. He took consolation in his memory of the annual Harrow-Eton match at Lord's, in which he had played a number of times. "I suppose it is one way of preparing the men for the front, or at least take their minds off the fact." Daniel mirrored Chittum's position with elbows on knees. "Mine had rather play cricket than bayonet practice." "Wouldn't we all? Maybe the Major will plan a test match instead of drill." "Perhaps we could defeat the Hun at a game of cricket. I wish it was so simple." Daniel felt a flush of guilt at lounging in this idyllic scene. "I detect a note of cynicism in your voice, Selden." "It just seems so incongruous, playing cricket, while not so far away the Western Front is taking a hammering." "I'm surprised at you, Selden. Our pleasures have to be taken advantage of wherever we are. You're an old soldier, aren't you?" "I guess I am. I'm just finding it hard to relax. I can't say I've noticed, Selden. You seem happily occupied in arranging the match." "Thanks to you, Chittum. Organising this has taken my mind off matters, but then I have been anxious whether the match will be good enough for the Major. He has high standards." "So do I, Selden, and in my opinion this is a fine match. Besides, you cannot predict how the game will be. All you need is some ground, bats and balls, and you're away. We are lucky to have some fine players, and this cavalry team is proving a worthy opponent. In his friendship with Bill and the other Maidley pals, he had developed an appreciation of football. While cricket had its unique gentleman qualities, football had the excitement of pace." Chittum broke into his thoughts. The Major would have risked low morale if he had denied their football. "The game seems to keep the troopers happy. Not that I'm a fan of it myself. It breeds too many bad emotions. Football's intensity charges men up. You're missing out the main point of the game, Chittum. Football has a need of skill as cricket does. Daniel had decided that Chittum had obviously not been at the front mark Christmas Day, when armistice had taken place between the ordinary Tommy and Fritz. On that day, there had been a meeting of ordinary men from two countries, having a simple kick around with the ball. There had been no high-ranking officers there to order them to resume fighting. He had since wondered, what if there and then the common soldier had taken control? What if both sides had put down their arms, refusing to fight? Perhaps then they might now be at home, watching a cricket match in their flannels. He looked up to find the shadow's source, tossing a cricket ball from one hand to another. Daniel was momentarily blinded by a sudden sunburst as the shape moved and sat down on the bench beside him. The silhouette of a face formed into Sergeant Osborne. Daniel felt the hair on the back of his head charged with tension. Ignoring the sergeant's presence, he continued to write the name of the next man in. "You are playing a dangerous game, Mr. Selden." The ball was tossed from one hand to another. "Cricket? Dangerous?" Daniel stared at the end of the bench. "You are talking nonsense, Osborne." Daniel stared at the man's name written in the scorebook. Sergeant Osborne had been the first man out. He was not a good player. After only 3 runs, Osborne had let the ball bounce off the bat into an easy catch. "I don't think so. I am a man who knows the truth and speaks it. You should know that, Master Selden. Cricket is a gentleman's game, but you are less than a gentleman, sir. Oh, you look the part, and you think you are clever for having been to university. But you are not that clever. You have not changed from what you were 10 years ago. I remember it quite well. As does your father, and he was too soft on you." Suddenly the sun was very hot. Daniel found his forehead was burning. He was too aware of the irritation of Osborne in the corner of his eye. Beneath that moustache the man smiled. Still the ball was tossed from one hand to another. "You are going to make a mistake, Master Selden, like you did before. When you do, I will be waiting.